Through this 5-part series, we are going to talk about how water is essential for your healing and learn whether your water is either killing you slowly or healing you. Hi, this is Zia and this is
Kamana, and welcome to Holistic Nomads TV,
where ancient wisdom and modern science can help you to have more clarity and energy in your life. Today is a part 2 of the 5 video series on the healing power of water. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like hanging out there. Okay, first we are going to talk about why are we dehydrated. It's not just because we don't drink enough. Of course, that's one of the main reasons, but there are actually other reasons.
There's many other reasons, and part of the reason is because our body requires certain minerals inside the water to be able to pull them into the body. So just a tiny little bit of salt or sodium amongst the water helps to draw the water in. A tiny little bit of magnesium, a tiny little bit of potassium, even sometimes a tiny little bit of sugar helps to draw fluids into the body. So in a very low sense, drinking water 2 liters each day, we just want a tiny bit of minerals, a little bit of magnesium, a tiny amount of sodium that would naturally present in spring water.
Yeah. And then now we are going to talk about what makes water, like the substance itself, can actually be dangerous. And unfortunately, this is not commonly known.
Yeah, when we get into one of the future episodes, we'll get more on that science side of minerals and what's happening in absorption. For now, we're looking more on the negative things that could be contaminating your water.
Yeah.
So
let's start with number 1 that is commonly used, and that is bottled water.
Bottled water. So in bottled water, one of the main contaminants that we have is called Xenoestrogens. It comes off of the plastic. So unless you're buying glass bottles, then there's a good chance that it has some of these xenoestrogens, plastic byproduct toxins that mimic estrogen inside the body. So they mimic the plug-in receptors of estrogen, which is quite challenging because normally inside the body we end up with low progesterone and high estrogen. This is just naturally. The body uses progesterone to make cortisol, so we get stressed and progesterone goes down. We need a balance of these things. So already we end up with high estrogens. And now we have petrochemical products like plastics that we are receiving these xenoestrogens and they plug into the same things. So the body feels like, oh, we've got even more estrogens with these plastics, and it tends to disrupt the hormonal imbalance in the body. Women are even more vulnerable to these than men. This happens even more when the plastic is heated. So if you put the plastic bottle in the sun, then it'll have even more xenoestrogens that are going into the bottle as well.
Yeah.
The older the plastic, the cheaper the plastic, the more that it's coming off inside the bottle. Then on top of that, we don't really know what the water source was like that the bottled water is coming from. In most places of the world, it's pretty controlled now. We have reverse osmosis. They've taken the minerals out, or they haven't, and you can see it on the side of the bottle. So the xenoestrogens is the main concern. And the fact that its electrical charge is reduced. It's sat in a bottle for a long period of time, so it hasn't ran across rocks and gone through some degree of electrical charging, and that electrical charging helps the body as well. We'll talk more about that in an upcoming episode.
Yeah, we never know how do they transport and distribute all of those bottled water, whether it's under the sun, whether it's, we don't know. And I personally notice, especially, if you go to supermarket, there's a cheap one brand that is a more expensive brand that usually comes with a glass bottle.
Yeah.
The taste is so different. One is like, dead water. I just can't describe it.
Yeah, here in Bali, the Balian one, when you drink that, you can really feel it's like, oh, this is much fresher, closer to the source. It's not so mass produced on a far different island or something.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the dangerous substances, can I call it substance?
Yeah, yeah.
That commonly found in water nowadays. And the first one is chlorine.
Yeah, so in order for us to go, oh, where does your water come from? It's a bit of a difficult thing in our modern times because it comes from so many different places. So in our mainstream modern town water production, they will usually put chlorine into the water. And this chlorine is to kill off bacteria and sanitize the water. And I totally understand that in certain environments this is a necessary thing so that people can have water to the masses, and it doesn't cost a huge amount of money to do that. And at the same time, if you can avoid it, it's good to avoid chlorine. Chlorine dries the body out, it aggravates the liver, it's acidic, and it starts to irritate the arteries and the circulation system of the body. It can contribute towards dry skin. And if you are confined to town water, you're in Australia or America or places where you can drink the tap water, then all you need to do to get rid of the chlorine is to put it inside a good container, a big metal bowl or a big pottery bowl, and put it in the sunlight for just a couple of hours. And the chlorine will already start to dissipate out of that straight away.
That's easy and cheap.
That's easy and cheap, yeah.
Next one, a very common one as well, is fluoride.
Fluoride. So again, fluoride is very common around the world as an additive to water. It's sort of like a mass pharmaceutical medication, even though that's meant to be illegal, but that's basically what they're doing, is giving us medication through the water like that. And depending on the type of fluoride that they're using, it can affect the body in very different ways. So the main one that's used around the world is called sodium fluorosilicic acid. And it's originally made as a byproduct of phosphate fertilizer production. So when they're making phosphate fertilizers, chemical fertilizers to produce for chemical fertilizers on farms, they will then have a byproduct of this sodium fluorosilicic acid. Now, as that sodium fluorosilicic acid, it is in Australia, according to the Material Data Safety Sheet, it is an S7 classed chemical hazard. It needs to be disposed of in specific ways. It can't be consumed by humans, and it has very negative effects on the body. So this, if we dilute it down, then the government says that's okay for them to put it inside the water, and in small amounts, it's not harmful to human beings, and that it may be good for the teeth. I'm not going to talk about whether or not it's good for the teeth. That's a big subject or not. It's possible that it is. I think there are other types of fluoride that could be better to use than the byproduct of phosphate fertilizer. This is a chemical waste that they've just taken advantage of to sell and put into the water. So I think that this is a real challenger for the body over time. Yes, our body can handle it in small amounts, but the longer it builds up in the body, and these are metals, they build up and start to really challenge the system over time, and then it'll challenge the liver, it'll challenge the nervous system. It makes us a bit docile, it sedates us, fluoride. So I would try to avoid fluoride, and I would go for just good quality fluoride from the things that we eat and consume, and make sure that we're getting that, not excesses coming in the water.
I think sedation is good. You kind of like run away from the crazy city life and you just like, yeah, life's good.
Sedated. I don't know if you'll run away. You'll probably just stay there because you're sedated.
Exactly. So you kind of just like, yeah, all good. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. You won't run away from the crazy city life.
You'll mindset.
Just, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll
mindset,
just deal
not
with
running
it.
away
That's
physically,
right.
but just like, you know,
Yeah.
government wants to make everything okay, including
Yeah.
the water you have, makes you feel more sedated with the
That's
reality.
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just my theory. Next one is the pH of the water itself.
The pH correction. So then after they've put these different chemicals in there, chlorine, fluoride, otherwise they start to go, oh, well, the water is either way too acidic or something's going on. So then they put out further chemicals in there to bring the pH back to a more neutral zone. Now, it hasn't necessarily taken out the other things. It's just neutral because now we have an even amount of acid and alkaline things in there. So it's sort of like, oh, there was too many chemicals in this direction. We'll put more chemicals in this direction so that at least the soup is tolerable. So not the most ideal long-term solution for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next one.
Next one, pharmaceuticals. So our modern day town water will often have recycled systems to it. So it will go to certain processing plants, it will get filtered and processed, and then it will go back out again. And pharmaceuticals are very small molecules. And these small molecules tend to recirculate in the system. So sometimes we're drinking tap water and we're actually drinking someone else's antidepressant medication. We're drinking someone else's cholesterol medication. These things can recycle through the system and return back to people. Now again, there's very small doses. They're not going to give you the antidepressant effect, but they are another thing for your kidneys, your liver to process and move through the body. And I just think we've already got enough to process. So if we can limit those sources as much as possible, that's going to be better for us.
And then next one is these quite dangerous things.
Quite dangerous things is the heavy metals.
Heavy metals.
Heavy metals come off a lot of our pipes. Heavy metals come out of the earth and through mining processes. So these heavy metals may be contained through industrial waste that's happening within the area. And some heavy metals are really quite small, while others are quite big. So depending on the heavy metal, they may go through lots of different filtration processes. Chlorine won't get rid of it. And it's one of the main reasons why within places like Southeast Asia and Bali, it's not so suitable to drink the tap water because of the likelihood of heavy metals that are contaminating it. And then if we go into the West, in Australia, America, and places like that, then the sodium fluorosilicic acid that I was talking about before, this byproduct of phosphate fertilizer manufacture that they put back into the water, it contains small amounts of heavy metals in it. It has some cadmium in it, it has mercury, it has lead, and sometimes it even has radioactive isotopes of radium and polonium, and these, they tend to bond into the bones. So even though they're tiny, tiny amounts, we end up with a radioactive material that bonds into our skeletal structure and is constantly releasing that radioactive waste. Yeah? We're talking about an energetic waste that disperses in all directions, increasing the likelihood of cancers within whichever area that radium and polonium gets set into the tissues long term.
In my personal experience, the best tap water in the world, because we were talking about what in Australia, in the States, Indonesia, and whatever.
Yeah.
Switzerland tap water is amazing.
Yes.
Probably.
Swiss tap water is incredible. It comes from lots of high mountain springs. Yet even in Switzerland, the thing you'll have to look for is sometimes excessive amounts of the minerals. It's what a lot of the other world doesn't have to look out for so much. But the ideal should be about 50 to 100 parts per million of dissolved minerals and things inside the water. And some of that Swiss mountain water is getting up into the 200, 300 parts per million as well. Still, generalization, some of the best high mountain clean water that doesn't need chlorine because it's a cold environment.
Now talking about minerals. Now the next common problem is the lack of minerals in many water.
Yeah, so that's part of what we started with on why people were dehydrated. So because we use a lot of filter systems these days that may take out all of the minerals. Reverse osmosis systems will do that. And that's a lot of what is being used for the bottled water as well. They'll generally use reverse osmosis. They'll take all the minerals and strip them out. So we need a certain amount of minerals. This 50 to 100 parts per million is ideal to be able to hydrate the body effectively and take water into the cells.
So in summary is that in Ayurveda you mentioned a lot about how our decision is not just about how it affects us as individual, but also we need to think through how it affects another and also the planet as a larger being, which is, for example, the bottled water is not actually just bad because of the reason of this plastic, and then usually you mentioned about acidic usually have a tendency, but also the more we consume bottled water, we can imagine how much plastic waste basically burdening our planet.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really need to look at how it might affect beyond us, and if we can create sustainable home solutions, then that's going to be much better long term for all of the planet, because those xenoestrogens end up leaching into everything.
Great, thank you.
If you're interested to learn more about the healing powers of water, how you can have some great budget solutions for your home, or how maybe some negative things are stopping you from dehydrating fully, then you can check out the ebook that I've written. You can download it from the link below. Also, if you're interested to go straight to what I consider as the best filter system that you can have, it's like having mountain spring water come right out of your tap, then I highly recommend the UltraStream water filter. You can see it on Holistic Nomads here. It's a pleasure to share this information with you. I know that it can change your life for the better. Look forward to sharing in the future.
Now, theory without practice is wasteful, because hearing leads to forgetting, teaching leads to remembering, and applying leads to mastering. That's why we will encourage you to leave a comment below and share one learning insight from this video. Also, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you will be the first to hear about our future educational videos. And for more resources on health and healing, check out our website holisticnomads.com. There you will find articles, quizzes on Ayurveda, loads of free resources, and of course our future educational events and courses. Thank you so much for watching. We hope it's been beneficial for you. Hope to see you next week. Bye! Now we're going to watch, sorry, clap again.